cannot have a discussion without including our next speaker, Mike Robbins, and Helios Design Lab. I met Mike, and I'm not sure if you remember this, 3 years ago when I was a very green graduate master's student at U of T, learning about interactive documentary. He was kind enough to spend quite a few hours with me at Helios Design Labs talking about his experience. I'm not sure if I was more infatuated with your office dog or the interactive documentaries. It's kind of a toss-up. But Mike Robbins is the creative technologist at Helios Design Lab. Helios is a multidisciplinary design studio located at the intersection of art and technology. They design experiences that combine the art of traditional storytelling with new and emerging technologies in web, mobile, and animation. The work they do has been sometimes explicitly expressed at this conference through Dorit Nauman's presentation, and also implicitly, especially with Jerry Fulhide, Man of B. You did the 3 or was it 4 of High Rise series?
3.5.
3.5? And has also done work with our conference director, Brenda Longfellow, and her project Offshore. So, like, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, this is great. We started with the High Rise project. That was basically our first. That was our entry into this medium. Before that, we were just like a callow bunch of commercial. We had a commercial motion graphics studio, so for us it was quite a departure to enter this world and a bit of adjustment. And I think we're actually still. I think that's the cool part of the job. Is every day is kind of an adjustment, and it's kind of like trying to figure out what stuff means. Like I was kind of. Amused is not the right word. It sounds condescending, which it doesn't mean to be. There was this big discussion of what is documentary, which I think is a good one to have, but it becomes even more complicated when you add the word interactive documentary, because then you have to say, what the hell is interactive? And that's something we've kind of been questioning all along. But what I'd like to do actually is talk a little bit more about the Offshore project, because I've got the VR version of the Offshore project. And how many people are sort of familiar with the project? Or okay, so I won't. It's a work that Brenda and I have worked on for the last how many? That's a long time. Yeah. So yeah, but the project kind of like reinvents itself. It started off as sort of like an exploration of oil exploration and exploitation in the wake of the Deepwater Horizon disaster, and it basically takes sort of like a first person experience of sort of a mystery, sort of very artificial and spooky oil rig where something has gone terribly wrong, and there's a bit of a sort of a game or play aspect to it. It's very much influenced by, for me, actually the only computer game I've ever been able to play, which is an old game called Myst, which was like for me, it's sort of a beautiful kind of vision pulling into a sort of an alternate reality, and there's magic realism and where you didn't have to be good at computer games to actually play and enjoy it, and that was kind of like our or at least mine, Brenda's too, eventually, kind of visual and touchstone, and we kind of embedded all these amazing live. Brenda and her partner Glenn spent 6 months on location down in the Gulf of Mexico, taking these beautiful sort of like large format footage of the environment, the people, the rigs, and kind of the process was super interesting too. It's happened again and again and again with people we work with. Is that somebody like Brenda comes to us, supposedly the interactive experts, whatever. I hate that word, but and she's Brenda and Glenn are saying, let's make this non-linear. Let's fuck it up, and and then we fall in love with the large format linear film. We kind of fall in love with the medium, the old medium, which is supposed to be being replaced by this newfangled shit. And so as Brenda and Glenn kind of pendulum towards the interactivity, we pendulum towards the old school linear large-scale cinema, and we become sort of the more of the filmic people, and Brenda becomes more of the interactive people. So we kind of like feed off of each other, and we kind of sort of meet in the middle, which I think is like a really nice experience. We've been doing this. We also work with things like there's a project that's just finishing up now with the Copenhagen Philharmonic. So we have these musicians, like the musical director. Now it's just the same thing. We become, us little guys at Helios become like for a little while musicians, composers or conductors, and they become like the geeks and the nerds, and we both enjoy paddling in each other's pool, and that works out really well. But I digress. Getting back to offshore. Offshore had started off as you can see it online as a sort of like panoramic walkthrough, and you can it's done through a web browser, and it can take a while, and it's immersive in its own way. And it was last summer. I got an email from this group in Bergen, Norway, and there's a thing called the Bergen International Film Festival, otherwise known as BIFF, and the people from BIFF, I guess Norway has like a strange relationship with extreme oil or offshore oil, because that's what fuels their socialism and their wonderful lifestyle. And they feel, I think there's an underlying feeling of if people do think about it, is a nagging sense of guilt. And so this was expressed to us by the organization festival, saying we'd really like to show this documentary, but we're saying, well, it's like 2 years old, and this is a festival, things are supposed to be new. So then we asked if they would like us to make a VR version, and because the experience itself is in a 360, so they call them panoramas within a web browser, and then it seemed to us to be sort of a logical extension to do that. And hitherto, as a studio, we were not interested in VR. VR seemed like the hula hoop in many respects, and it actually still kind of does. I mean, it's such a closed system, closed box. But what was sort of interesting for us was that this was a technology which is an offshoot of VR called Web VR. And through Web VR, you can do this thing. You can actually make it responsive. You can open it up so that somebody can actually see the same code experience, the same documentary through a web browser. Or if you look at it in your smartphone with a cardboard viewer, you could see that. Or you could see it as an Oculus environment. And that because hitherto all our sort of interactive documentary work was meant to be open, and this to us was this made it worth doing, because I think the one thing about VR and its downside actually is, like, who cares, like, in my mind, if it's an empathy machine or not. What it is, it's a closed system. It's actually everything that we've worked for. It's not. It's something, things like our work, the work that we work on should be open. It should be for, accessible to as many people as possible. But here's this sort of festival, very artificial thing, and I still actually kind of do, but it was so much fun doing that. I had to kind of eat my words a little bit. But I don't know, how should we do this? Like, do you guys actually want to come up and take a look at this, or should I go through a little bit of the experience online, or do you just?
I think people can look at it while you're doing it online too.
Okay, sure. We show you the actual sort of responsive nature. Well, actually, what I'll do here. I mean, this was sort of an interesting process right from the beginning for us too, for Brenda and us, as well as that. When we first started working on offshore, there was a sort of a certain amount of controversy with the piece itself, in that it was like a bit of a game, and it did use game mechanics, and we don't want to use the word gamification, because there wasn't really quite that extreme. But as you can see here, this is sort of like a constructed reality. But we kind of thought of this as like a kind of theater, like a way, or but sort of like a Brechtian thing to kind of like distance people, push them and make them aware that this is not real, but also that is sort of like a platform for the stories that were all too real, which we'll get into a little bit here. So if we enter VR, and so this actually here is this what you would see if you looked at this through a cardboard. So as you see here, it's supposed to be, and let's go. So what the experience uses is this thing called gaze navigation. So if you look at something long enough, then so I'm just showing you this. This is sort of like an externalization of what people see in a VR headset. It's kind of cool. And then what we also had this problem of how to integrate all this beautiful footage into a VR situation. So what we actually did, we built a theater. So we see if we look through this, we're actually sitting in a theater. And actually, it gives you like the sense when you're actually in the headphones of being in a theater. So your sense of scale becomes very distorted. So that I've heard it said, and I think it's quite true, is that two of the most exciting moments in a VR experience is when the first time you put a headset on, and then when you take it off. Because when you take the headset off after being in this theater, and all of a sudden you're back in a small room, there's this like, huge sense of I'm crushing you with my volume here. I'm sorry. And but there's this huge sense of displacement. There's like this volume thing. So and then we're in the helicopter. And actually, what I'll do just for now, I'm just going to get out of the VR experience just so it makes it easier. So you see, that's kind of like this was for us really cool, like the seamless ability to actually offer an experience that is sort of kind of almost democratic in that you see it in a web browser, or you can enter the VR. So it really doesn't matter. And the important thing that it is open. And it is on, as you can see, it is on the web, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you just a bit more how the film that interacts with the. Okay, so now we're on this mystery boat, and so what we do. And so what happens here too is that throughout the course of your experience, there's this kind of stream of videos that play. Even though you're kind of experiencing this in a non-linear fashion, the videos, the stories behind the scene actually play through in a linear fashion. So if I go away and I come back to this, I will never see this film again unless I cycle through all of the films. So it turns into like a movie within an interactive experience.
This may be the last year that we coming up.
And this actually started off, the idea too is we did an installation piece where it was guided by an iPad, and somebody was like doing it on the iPad, and then it was projected on what he saw or she saw on the iPad was projected on the big screen like this, and then what the festival organizers had done, which I initially thought was like terrible, but then I realized was really cool. They'd set up all these seats like a movie theater. And so what happened was that people would actually sit in these seats, and one person would be elected to go and drive the experience. And they sat and they watched way more film than people would do on the internet. So, I mean, this is the thing, is that quite often, if you take a look at web stats, this is a very commonly quoted statistic, that maybe like your average visit time for an audience member is like about 5 minutes. But it was so really fascinating to watch somebody an audience sit through for like 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes, and experiencing the whole sort of interactive experience as a movie, because somebody else was driving, and they were kind of cool with that. And I'm not going to drive through too much, because it's actually kind of frustrating after saying all that, watching somebody else do things. But what we're also seeing too was just on a real sort of nuts and bolts technical level. We'd actually built this rig way back when in 3D, so it had existed. So for us to do our sort of 360 camera video stuff, we'd actually sort of built like a little VR rig, virtual VR rig that kind of traveled through through parts of the oil rig, like for instance here. I think I might have to fix that, but in any event, so for this, and this also fulfilled our mandate too of like using the internet as a tool, as a collage tool, like how we could make video work with still images, work with sound, work with text, and kind of pull it together in hopefully a cohesive whole. But there you go.